Hi everyone, my name is Lucy. I am the co-founder of the RE Project. So the RE Project is the peer mentoring and career advice community for millennial and Gen Z social scientists. Today we're very excited to kick off the first episode of our special series on career building during the time of COVID. So our first episode features two entrepreneurs who managed to build their career during previous crises, and they will share with us some of the lessons that they learned from their experience and how those lessons might be able to apply for the current COVID situation. So welcome, Ted and Mario. Would you first briefly introduce yourself to the community?
Hi, I'm Ted George, the founder and chief narrative officer of Kleos Advisory. We advise on African markets, commodity value chains, and fintech. And we particularly help out when it comes to thought leadership and also with strategic advisory, whether it's trying to decide how to go into a new market or finding better and innovative ways to do business in the markets that you know, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. And I mean, I have a long history of trying to do many different kinds of jobs ever since I got my national insurance card when I was 16. So I certainly have advice on how to get work. And let me tell you, it's hard, always has been.
Hi, my name is Mario. I'm the co-founder and CEO of WeDo, a social enterprise that focuses on leadership development for women, primarily a young woman coming from Asia. And I'm a graduate of development management in year 2008, 2009, so fresh of financial crisis. And I look forward to the conversation.
The really best advice I could give, I mean, the three things I just worked on when I realized very quickly I couldn't get a job straight away, it would take a while. Number one is network, really building the network. And the thing about a network is you own it yourself. You can't own somebody else's network. They can introduce you to someone, but if you don't make a connection, you can't keep going back to the same person for the same connection. So building that network, it's trickier now because we can't meet, but that won't be the case always. But that's something which takes a long time, and it's person by person. And that really pays off, because that is when there's an opportunity, for example, and it turns out you know someone in the company, and they can tell you 2 or 3 things about how you got for the job, which make all the difference. The other thing is I was just really busy. So I traveled a lot. I was writing, I was studying, I was learning about things, learning languages, really busy. That's the point. Even if you're not entirely sure how it adds up on a CV is telling the story you want to tell. But all of the experience, if you're busy doing stuff, counts. And then I think the final thing actually is just to recognize that you may not know what the job is that you want to do out there. I really never really realized that this kind of job as an analyst even existed. And in fact, it's more kind of like strategic analyst. I just knew I wanted to do interesting stuff. I loved African markets, complexity. This is an opportunity when you leave and you finished a master's to really have a look. What is actually the job market like? What kind of jobs do exist? Because there may be some which perfectly fit what you want to do. You didn't even realize they existed. They may just be in a different sector or some way. So in other words, look and keep looking.
I remember when I first joined in 2008, there was a professor in my course that said, congratulations, you're going to be the first class that's not going to find a job as soon as you graduate. And that really wasn't very much encouraging. We're really at the beginning of the financial crisis. And realized that for many of the degrees that you guys are pursuing, disaster actually mean an increase in work. Funnily enough, my first job after graduation was in the earthquake relief effort of 2010 in Haiti. And whilst that is a terrific destruction, it's a tragedy. I mean, it stays a tragedy. But even the current moment of COVID is creating the whole need of rebuild the entire healthcare systems or entire value chain for a certain product. For many, the job is going to be even shifting the values of entire societies, perhaps. And so, whilst I don't advocate for just doing whatever it's around there, it just creates new opportunity. If you look for those opportunities and how they match what your unique skills are, you may find that there is more abundance of jobs in a crisis. I also find that diversifying tends to be a good advice. To build on what Ted was saying, you may not know what you want. And so putting all the eggs into just one career may not be necessarily smart in terms of job market, but you may just find you get a job there and you discover you don't like it. So I personally work in humanitarian and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I worked for an advocacy organization and I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I worked in social entrepreneurship. All three very different. And I found that I loved social entrepreneurship and stuck around that. And I'm very grateful for the 9 month contract, the other 6 months contract here and there, because it was still part of the educational experience, if you want.
Well, I mean, my view on this one would be is actually, particularly if we're talking about young graduates who want to work in development or anything like that, COVID is a massive opportunity. You only have to look at the amount of money which is being thrown at it. You look at all of the development institutions, they have billions, hundreds of billions of dollars they want to invest, and they're looking for solutions. That doesn't just mean anyone's going to give you a job, because of course everyone is trying to find work at the moment and millions of people have lost their jobs. But the thing is, if your passion and your interest is actually in development, now is when you are needed more than ever. And so, for example, this issue of can I get the experience in a job? At the moment now, yes, you could. Are you going to get paid? Probably not. But does that really matter if the entire job you're going to be done from home anyway because you can't travel? There's such an opportunity now for you to reach out and actually get experience. And that means, again, going out and looking what is needed at the moment. So one thing is definitely the availability that you can come in and you can start filling some gaps. But the other thing is ideas and really good potential solutions to problems out there. They are desperate for them. You can see a lot of the thinking of the development agencies. There's still a lot of it, which is pre-COVID. They really haven't got their head around the different impacts it can have. And as young graduates, you literally are part of the digital world. You know so much more about how this is supposed to function. So if you put those together, I'd say it's an ideal opportunity. But I also recognize it's terrifying for many people in the sense of how on earth do you make a living? Everyone's trying to find their way through. In all honesty, most people are planning 6 weeks ahead for the time being. But the reality is that this will pass. Essentially, life will get back to the ability to do business as it was before. At that point, if you've really been engaging, that's where there could be the opportunity to take another step. So I think it's a big opportunity, but I think in terms of like what you should do, if you are locked down, then the key thing is, one thing, your network. Reach out to other people in your network. We need to support each other at this time, but actually there's so many things that can be developed by brainstorming together. Really support each other, because everyone is in this situation at the moment. But I also think this thing about a positive attitude. It's so easy to get completely hopeless when you look at the COVID situation. If you look at any of the bad projections, they're just appalling. You might as well just give up and just fall asleep, but you can't. So you've got to be positive in terms of what you can achieve. And when it comes to things like opportunities for jobs, every time you get a chance to talk to someone and ultimately pitch your wares of who you are actually interviewing for a future job. And it may be you don't get the role that day, and it may be you don't get the next one, but it's about you making that positive connection. So if you find there's an opportunity, but it dries up, don't see it negatively. I'd say, hold on, that was a really good engagement and they want to engage with me again later in the year. So I'm going to put it in my diary and I'm going to make sure I do something in between. So when I go back, I have something to say to them. So that's the positive approach. And I think the other thing is just remember that so much about trying to get jobs is about getting to the starting line. It's not actually about the interview. For many of you, if you have the opportunity to be up against 2 other people for the job, you probably might be able to get it, right? But how do you get to that point? And that's all to do with learning about the job and the company you want to go for, making the connections, the network, etc. But that's really what you want to be aiming for. So expect, like any door-to-door salesman, every 9 people are going to tell you to get lost. And the 10th person will say, tell me a bit more. That might be the way in. So positive attitude above all.
One of the ways in which this COVID situation may be different for recent graduates, I find, is that this element of distancing and the fact that you won't be able to go and play squash or get many of those cappuccinos with your classmates. I never forget, I actually got my first job in a coffee shop after one of those cappuccinos from one of my classmates. The fact that you won't have a chance of doing that immediately during your degree doesn't mean you won't be able to do it at all. So try to stay in touch. If there are occasions to get together with others, whatever allows you to build that initial bridge, I can tell you that to this very day, we are now 11 years, 12 years, almost after the degree, there are some of the people I was in study group with are still the first people I reached out to if there is a problem or if I'm passing by. their country. Todd was saying this situation will pass, and you'll still have a lot of couches to crash on in the next few months. Use that. Like if you're going in a country and there may be somebody there, try to reach out. Kind of crash on your couch rather than go in a dull hotel room next to the office where you're going to be. To no matter what's my job or my position, I still sleep on the couches of my friends. I think that's totally fine. I value the building of the network so much more than the fancy hotel room. I just don't care. The other point is that this crisis is truly global. Given the financial crisis, wasn't really. Well, London was very badly hit, Manhattan was very badly hit, but nothing was really changing that much in many other parts of the world. Like right now, we are all locked in. All my friends, wherever they are, they're closed in. So it's interesting how this is going to share, perhaps in a perverse way, a unique bond between the generation of students that are going through this adversity, because literally everybody on planet Earth is going through the same thing together. So not only there's the jobs that are coming up with it, but I'm very curious to see what is going to be the shared mindset. How much of that helping each other there's going to be? I will bet there's going to be just so much more.
I think everything about the next few months, so let's be honest, 3 to 6 months, I mean, possibly longer, that's got to be all about business development, as you should see it, in terms of trying to connect with people. It's got to be done digitally. So as I said before, if there are organizations that you wanted to work for, it's to find people you know in them or people who know people who work in them and reach out and see if there's places that you can engage and you can support. Bring in your ideas, etc., because that's one of the ways to do it. Everyone's sitting at home. So if you've got a connection, see what you can do in. And I think also, pointing back to the point of Mario as well, the need to reach out to everyone else, actually take some initiative on this one. I would agree that I always have a certain bunch of people I would immediately get in touch with if there was any kind of crisis. And it's amazing actually how talking to different people can really change your perspective on what you think is good and what isn't. It's not about one single conversation. It's about lots of them, which will get you to that point. The other thing I'd say is, really tool up. You have an opportunity to tool up here, i.e. learn. Do the online courses, do all the reading that you said you would do, everything. I mean, literally do it. There are going to be half the people here who watch literally half of Netflix, and there'll be other people who actually do stuff and see it through. And I think once you're through the period of the crisis, so there's some kind of normality, you'll be well positioned for when they say, okay, we now have a budget, and you actually have been on my radar for several months. I do want to use you.
Yeah, for sure. I find that this crisis has the need of having a little bit of a quantity approach, of trying to nurture more opportunities, perhaps even diversify the learning. If you have studied development or international relations, maybe an online coding class can provide some lateral way of looking at the world at large, at your very job, perhaps in that way that's going to make you stand out when the job market is going to be back online and there's going to be like 10,000 people applying for that job. I can't stress enough that some organization and some position are in a surge capacity, in a surge moment. So there's going to be more jobs of certain things. Now, I always knew I was not going to be a humanitarian worker for the rest of my life, but I thought that I wanted to understand what that means, what's the mindset, how does organization work. And so when the earthquake happened for me, that was, in a perverse way, if you want, was kind of good news. It created the opportunity that found me ready because that's what I was looking for. And so even if somebody doesn't really have a plan of working in healthcare system building for the long run, there is a scenario that getting an internship, volunteering, a job, you're probably not going to be hired straight away as a manager of a large international organization. So, just relax about that. That time will come too. But taking a little bit what's available, it goes on that learning, it goes on that diversifying, and it goes on that staying busy that Ted was mentioning. One more thing that will come to mind is that there are some cycles of hiring that are going on no matter what. The United Nations or other international organizations have hiring cycles that are 2 years long. My now wife, co-founder, and fellow LSE student at the same time was taking the UN entrance exams at the beginning of our degree. She got a job 2 years after. That's just a time frame of which in which certain things go on, and probably the foreign service department in your country still also has this very long cycle. The public service in many of the country has some very long cycle as well. So while there may be a little bit more competition this year, if that's your ambition, or even if that's not your ambition, if that's your possibility, do that, and it just will bring another option that you may actually rejoice to receive a couple of years down the line.
The other real opportunity as well in this period is about thought leadership. If you are going to get hired as well in the future, it's very good if you can say, and I've been involved in this webinar, and I've done these blogs, and I've been involved in this roundtable, which I organized. And the thing is, there's nothing to stop you doing that. And this is the perfect time as well, because people actually are available. There are a lot of people who would never have done a virtual roundtable, but guess what? They can't do one now. And in fact, they might be persuaded to do that. So there is an opportunity you have here to build up that bit of credibility as well. Even if you don't have the experience, you've got credibility to show. And that will be valuable when that opportunity arises for the job.
And thank you for watching. If you like our content, please remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So feel free to leave a comment about what kind of content that you would like to see from us in the future. And thank you for watching.